You know that feeling when your days keep stretching longer and you think that relief is just around the corner, but it's not? You tell yourself to push a little harder to just get through this week, but then next week is exactly like this one, but worse. Here's the issue. You often don't see the breaking point until you've hit it, and by then the damage is already done. So in today's episode, we're discussing how to get ahead of that breaking point. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. Story time. Okay, let's take a trip down my memory lane to peak pandemic times. Not a time that you're keen on revisiting? I get it, but stay with me. Anyways, I was coaching a woman who was working at a very fast-growing tech company, one for which remote work was a boon for their product. And let's call her Sarah, which is not her real name. So Sarah's company was growing so fast that hiring couldn't keep up, and Sarah was suffering. Her little team of two had gone from working regular 40-hour work weeks to regularly working until 11 p.m. every single night just to keep up with the increasing workload. Sarah was stretched thin. She was on the edge of burnout. And let's not forget, she had a baby and a toddler at home with no childcare because pandemic. Now, when we started talking through her options, she was feeling kind of demoralized. It seemed to her like her only options were to keep working at this breakneck pace that she was taking on with no end in sight, or to talk to her manager about the excess workload. She did not feel good about either option. She worried her manager would think that she wasn't doing a good job. She worried about getting fired by rocking the boat. Everyone was in the same boat after all. But eventually, with a little encouragement, she decided a better option was to at least open the conversation with her manager. She couldn't keep working 16 hours a day. And so she mustered up the courage, we did a little role play, and then she scheduled the meeting. And in our next session, I was eager to hear the results of her conversation. And honestly, it couldn't have gone better. And she was shocked, even though I wasn't so shocked. She was shocked in a good way. Her manager had told her, "Hey, thank you so much for letting me know. Now that I know that you're over capacity, I have the ammo I need to get more headcount. If I don't know there's an issue, I can't advocate for it. So thank you." And you know what? 2 weeks later, my client's team had doubled, and she was back to working 40-hour work weeks. And she was still in everyone's good graces, including her own. So the moral of this story, you cannot absorb forever. You will explode. Even the most efficient person on earth has a max capacity. I want you to think of it this way. A sponge can only absorb so much liquid. It has a max capacity. And it's no longer useful when it's at capacity. It can't absorb anything more. It just moves the mess around, creating more mess. You need to squeeze out some of that water before it will work again. Now another analogy. A glass of water can only be filled to the top. After that, you can pour out the water. You can still pour more water in, but you're going to spill it all over the place, and then you're going to have a big mess to clean up. You also have a max capacity, and it's not work until it's not physically possible to work anymore. That is an absolute recipe for burnout or even worse. Because again, you are not a magical sponge. You cannot absorb forever. Eventually, you'll bust open or it'll ooze out, and then what will you do? You're delaying the inevitable. Full burnout or rage quitting without a plan, while also experiencing stress and overwhelm. So how does this situation happen in the first place? Well, it's usually not because your boss is evil or your company is, although, that could be true. We are living in late-stage capitalism after all. In fact, studies show that managers are typically only aware of about 60% of what's on their direct reports' plates, meaning that they often don't even know you're over capacity unless you tell them. They've got a lot on their plates too. And really, most people are only thinking about themselves, not because they're bad people, but because they're simply people. They're asking you to do stuff and you're saying yes, even when you have no room, because you don't think there's another option, just like Sarah. And it can also happen when you don't set boundaries at the beginning of a new job. Lots of folks spend the first few months at a new job overperforming, working late, proving their worth. And then around 3 to 6 months, when you've proven yourself and your boss trusts you, you want to go back to a normal schedule. The problem is that no one has experienced your normal before. They only know the overperformance that you've shown them. And so going back to normal can look like slacking. Uh-oh, now you're in a double bind. So what can you do when you're getting close to capacity or already over it, needing to correct in the other direction? Look, going to your boss and saying, "I'm overworked, I'm overwhelmed, help," it isn't a good look, and it's also not likely to get you anywhere good. But you can say the same thing in a way that makes you look smart and strategic, and that also clearly communicates that you can't take on more. To do so, you've got to shift the conversation from workload to priorities. So workload to priorities. How are you going to do this? Well, I'm going to help. So I'm going to give you a few go-to scripts that have worked for me and for my clients, and yes, that have worked for Sarah too. So here are some scripts that you can steal. And if you need to pause and write these down, go ahead and do that. Number 1, of course, I'm happy to take that on. In order to do it, we'll have to shift some priorities. What should we put on the back burner in order to take this on? Or number 2, of course, I'm happy to. Given my current workload, I can get that into the queue to be done by. You enter a ruthlessly realistic timeline, right? Give yourself a lot of buffer. Or number 3, of course, I'm happy to. I'm currently focusing on priorities X, Y, and Z. Do you want this new work to take on precedence or over this stuff, or do you want these priorities to shift, right? Or number 5, hey, I want to make sure we're on the same page when it comes to priorities. Here's what I'm currently prioritizing, and here's what will come next. Do you agree with these priorities? The subtext to this one, you can't do it all right now, right? So these are 4 different ways, maybe I said 5 before, 4 different ways that you can talk about workload in a way that makes you feel good because you're shifting it to the language of priorities. Now, if you are over capacity right now, feeling the squeeze, not sure how to move forward, are you ready to schedule this conversation or to pull out one of these scripts the next time you need it? And if you have handy phrasing that's worked well for you in the past, will you let me know so that we can crowdsource what works for everyone else? Remember that studies show that people working 70 hours a week aren't any more productive than those working 50 hours. So those extra hours are getting you nothing but stress. There's no time like the present to make a change for the better. And as they say, the best time to take action was yesterday, but the second best time is right now. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe now so that you can save yourself time in the future and never miss an episode. It'll take 5 seconds to hit subscribe, and the payoff will be big. You'll never have to think about it again. And pro tip, you'll be using the decide once strategy and saving yourself from the fate of decision fatigue. Do yourself this quick kindness, and I'll see you next time.